What's up YouTube, this is Dennis Panuta for tutorials.eu/unity. In this video you are going to learn how to build your first player, a very simple one. He will not be able to move at this point of the journey, but we're going to add that later. So the player will just have the capability of falling and being stopped by a ground. So we're going to add a rigid body as well as a sphere collider to it, and this will give you a general understanding of how simple a player can actually be. So sometimes a player doesn't have to be able to be actively moved, but it will be passively moved by physics. And that's what we're going to look at in this video. Very simple. And before we get started, please hit that like button and the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed already. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers with this channel by the end of the year, so really appreciate if you help us out. So let's get started. Welcome back. In this video we are going to add our player, its model, as well as the materials and the physics. So let's get into it. So the first thing that we will need is of course going to be the player. So therefore let's create a new 3D object, and we're going to use a very simple one, and that will be the sphere. I'm going to rename the sphere to player because that will be the name of our object. And then let's reset the position real quick so that it will start in the origin of our game, so to speak, of our level, and then change the position of it a little up. So now the Y coordinate will be at 5. So now if we run our game, we will see that our player doesn't do anything. So now if we run our game by pressing the play button, we can see that nothing happens. Our ball doesn't fall down, and well, basically the player doesn't do anything. And that is because the player is basically the same thing as the walls right now. It's just floating in the air. There's no gravity assigned to it, nothing like that. So let's change that. And you saw in the first chapter how to create physics to an object. Click on the player, click on add component, select physics, and then select the rigid body. It's this one here. You can of course also just search for rigid body and then select the normal one, not the 2D one, but the normal one. Now our player will have physics, so it will have gravity because this tick box is active. So let's run this, and we will see that our ball will fall and it will stay put on the ground. So now let's look at the rigid body a little more. So you can see the component has some options, like its mass, which shows the object that is attached to weighs around 1 kilo. Just to note, Unity uses the metric system for the units, so meters and kilograms. But don't worry if you don't use the metric system. Most of the time you won't need to be as precise with the mass, and if you do, just use Google to convert it really quickly and you should be all set. We also have this thing called drag and angular drag. We won't be needing that in this chapter, but to sum it up, drag can be used to slow down an object when moved using a force. And angular drag is basically the same thing but for rotations. So how quickly something can rotate. By adding a drag, you could reduce the speed at which a physics force will rotate our ball. What is essential though is the option to use gravity, because otherwise the ball will never fall down, and by default it is activated, and if not, then make sure that use gravity is active in your case as well. Once that is set, you can see that the gravity works once we play it as we did, but there is one little problem here. The thing is, our game should be, even though in a 3D world, just a 2D game. So our ball should not be able to jump forward or backward, so basically out of our area here. So it should not be able to jump in towards this direction here, for example, right? The ball should only go towards the X and Y axis. So we need to deactivate the Z axis. So if you look at it, this blue axis here is the Z axis. You can see it here at the top, it says Z. So we want to disable the Z axis. How can we do that? Well, stop the game. Don't make any changes to the game once it's running, and then go here and then make sure to change the constraints. So here you can add a constraint for a particular rotation as well as position. So we are going to freeze the Z position. So now physics will not be able to move our ball in the Z position. So it will not be moved towards any of these directions, so left and right, from this angle, so to speak, from the angle of the camera, forward and backward. So physics won't move it back or forward. So now let's give our player a color. So inside of assets, materials, I'm going to create a new material. I'm going to call this one player. All right, now let's change the color, and I'm going to use a yellow color here. You can use any color that you want. I'm just going to use this yellow color and drag it onto the player. Okay, so you can now see the player on the right hand side, if you scroll down, has this player material now. So once you click on the player, you can find it here. All right, so that's it for this video. As you can see, our ball is actually falling down, and there is some physics. Of course, we'll need to add a lot more to it, but for now, that's it. See you in the next video. Thanks a lot for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Now you're one step closer to becoming a Unity game developer. And if you haven't liked the video yet, please do so now, as well as subscribe. And also make sure to follow along in the playlist to become a real Unity developer. And if you want to fast track the whole development process of becoming a developer, then definitely check out our Unity Masterclass, in which you're going to build a bunch of games, and while doing so, learn everything you need to know about game development and, well, have your first couple of projects under your belt. So check it out. The link is in the description below. You will get a huge discount, and I hope to see you in the next video.